That clock's wrong.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's a couple minutes.
I got 5:29.
Have
Oh,
all
it's a
kinds of good
minute off.
chank music.
Yeah, I'll be in Lafayette next weekend for Mardi Gras.
You may have
Huh?
major
I'll be in
influx of
Lafayette
people.
next weekend for Mardi Gras.
Lafayette.
Lafayette. They have parades there. That's where the family's from, is around there.
We have a big deal.
It's like a family reunion. We get together. We take over a church parking lot, right across from the
The
university.
family?
Yeah, mom's side of the family, dad's side of the family, got cousins, got friends. We rent, we don't, I say we don't take it
Across
over.
from USL?
But we, yeah, right, Ooh La La now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we rent 3/4 of the parking lot. I got an uncle shows up with his RV, so we've got our own bathroom for the ladies. The guys walk across the street to the porta johns. We set up the barbecue pits and the canopies, and there's a kids parade about 2 o'clock, and an adult parade about 7.
According to my thing, it's
I'm ready.
5:30.
That's what I have, I've got 5:32.
Why don't you call him? Did you call him?
He's en route, he just texted me.
Huh?
He's en route, he
we
texted
can,
me.
why do we need him?
He's what?
He's en route already.
He said he's on
texted
his
me.
way.
Is he on the agenda?
He's explaining the well. What-
What do you mean
And I'm
explaining the
Well, I'm
well?
assuming we can ask questions. If
Well,
someone-
Discuss, approve,
yeah,
emergency.
if you've got some technical questions
We
between.
went through a whole meeting on this Friday, I thought we were.
You
just-
did,
No.
we didn't.
No, we didn't.
I don't know that you did. I mean, you left the same time everybody else did.
Well, we
didn't
were
do
supposed to
anything.
do this on Friday.
No, sir, we did not do a damn thing on Friday because
What were
We
we
didn't
supposed
have
to
an
do on
agenda.
Friday? What were we supposed to do on Friday?
we were supposed to have this agenda on Friday and we didn't
Right.
have it.
Okay, well, that's
It
absurd.
was, the agenda was made out incorrectly.
It was my fault, Bob, because I didn't word it
And we
right.
couldn't discuss or act on anything because it would have been a Open Meetings Act violation and all that other kind of BS.
Well, Monday's a bad day to have it, because I've been to Cleveland, I've been to Cold Spring, I've been to Huntsville, I barely made it.
I've been to New Orleans and Lafayette
Today?
today.
Really?
I've been to the gym
I
and that's
came
even
back from New
worse.
Orleans.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Do we advertise for bids for the well? Or do we have an agreement with Weisinger that they do all of our wells irregardless of?
That's what this emergency
We can
meeting's about.
discuss
It's a totally different thing if you do it in an emergency thing.
Are we on?
Well,
We're on?
let's go ahead and commence.
That's why I asked my
The
question.
meeting is called to order, if you will, to discuss an emergency, this is an emergency meeting to discuss a replacement for well number 2. To bring you up to date, would you get your jar of stuff out,
John?
sand?
Oh,
Bring you up to date, Mark went out with me 2 weeks ago when we found out we had holes in the casing and all that. And we elected to take a couple of steps of action to make sure that we could repair the well at a cost that we could afford at that time. We made that attempt, and basically the casing collapsed on us. And the well bore, at least from 600 feet down, is full of that, which is where all of our material comes from. And if we tried to produce it, we'd have nothing but sand come up and cut out our bumps, etc. Therefore, it is Weisinger's recommendation, and I'm going to let the floor to the Blau man who was at our last meeting, at which time it was explained all of this had occurred, and let him explain to you from Blau's standpoint what's going on. Mark, you have it? No. Mr. Sullivan.
So, these are the minutes from the meeting that we had the other day. It's two-sided, by the way. This one for you, since you were there. Basically, I just reiterated the facts, everything we've kind of talked about already. The old well is not producing any longer. They have tested it. I put down the facts. The old well was built in 1970. In 1996, the screens were relined. That gave it a service life extension. Anytime you pull the well, they refurbish the well, which again, that gives it a life extension. And so you've actually received about a 20-year life extension out of the well. It's done pretty good. It's currently a 16 by, what's known as a 16 by 10 well. It's about 1,250 feet deep, and it was designed to pump 1,000 gallons per minute at approximately 410 feet of head. Pump was previously, I thought I corrected that, it was set at 500 feet. Didn't we fix that?
Yes.
It was set at 500 feet, not 400 feet. The static water level is about 200, normally should be about 300 feet, but anyway, it's about 229 feet. Currently, pumping level is about 306 feet, which gives you 77 feet of drawdown. Again, when the pump comes on, what it does, it draws the water down to some level. And then when the pump goes off, it goes back to the static level. Basically, you have about 94 feet of water, pardon me, that'd be 194 feet of water over the well, over the pump. Weisinger has already been paid approximately $115,000, and there is more billing expected to complete work that they have done and have not billed for yet. They did some more work while doing all this explanation. So that has not been billed yet, so I don't have an exact on that, but during the testing they installed a temporary liner and they attempted to clean the well, and obviously as it collapsed. The static water level has now been reduced to 150 feet, and that's an indication that you're now drawing or commingling from the upper aquifer. This is a TCQ violation. It's a Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District violation. It's a violation of typical principles of water wells, because what happens is you're now pulling water out of the upper aquifer, allowing it to get to the lower aquifer, and or vice versa. Thereby one aquifer can contaminate the other, and it's not a good situation. We have to certify when we finish a well that we're not doing that. So it's not a good situation. They did take video. They can see the holes in the casing. Their camera was actually blown back and forth by the velocity of the flow. Also, the camera indicated the screens at the bottom of the well were actually blocked. And that's why they did the agitation, was to try to clear the screens. Well, thinking through this somewhat, when you stop pulling water through those screens, they will start to clog up somewhat naturally. So this is another indication you may have been pulling water out of the upper aquifer for some period of time, rather than the lower aquifer. Thereby, it's easier to come out of the upper than it is the lower. So since you can't clean those screens, which is your biggest thing, you've already relined those screens. You're kind of stuck at this point. So out of the meeting, I discerned that there was little hope. We went through every possibility of trying to restore the well, but it's getting so small. You do have a 150 horsepower motor, which basically needs to be cleaned, but it appears that it can currently be reused until such time as it fails. But again, it's 1970, 40 years old, 50 years old. It's held up pretty good, because you haven't replaced the motor, right?
Oh, yeah, I replaced it.
Did you replace the motor?
In Harvey, we lost it in Harvey, we had to replace
So
it.
that's only less than 10
Yeah.
years? Okay. I didn't have that.
3 years.
Yeah, 2 years old.
Okay.
Right. And I've got a high efficiency, so.
Oh, that's good to know. I think you told me that. I forgot to add that to my notes. Right now, during the summer months, the district uses approximately 30 million gallons per month, which equals 1 million gallons per day. You have two other wells. One was drilled pre-1970 and one was drilled in 1996, as I understand it. So you've got a 500 gallons per minute well, a 1,000 gallons per minute well. You lose either one of those wells, you're in violation with TCEQ. You're also in dire straits. If you lose the 500 GPM well, your 1,000 well will be running 14 hours a day, which means you're now stressing it to the max. If you lose the 1,000 gallon per minute well, you don't have capacity to even provide service to your customers. And that's where you will be required to start implementing drought contingency, both through TCQ as well as through Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. Are you a member of the GRP, the SJRA GRP?
Not this year.
Okay, you're not part of it, okay.
No, we don't have to answer the SJRA.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the big meeting here in RP with them?
Don't worry about
It's
it.
not
Let's
in
talk about this.
Okay,
We can talk about that later. So basically, the district really needs a well in operation by June the 1st. There's some things, additional things that we need to do. We're recommending, after talking with a lot of things, dropping the pump 50 or 100 feet deeper for the reason that drawdown is a long-term thing and it can continue. In accordance with Lone Star, everybody says the aquifer is continuing to drop. And if you go ahead and set the pump at a lower depth, you have a few minor losses now, but it saves you from pulling the pump and having to do that work later. You're already installing a brand new well. The cost is actually minimal. What do you pay just to pull the well pump and motor?
13,000.
$13,000 just to pull it. And so at this point, all they need to do is buy the additional equipment and install it while they're installing the well. It really doesn't take them probably less than a day of time. So the new scope of the well is to replace it, a 1,000 GPM well with a 1,000 GPM well. Your design head's the same. We are recommending that you upsize your well from a 16 by 10 inch to an 18 by 12 inch. And we can bid it, well, let me go there. We can get an alternate to go back with the 16 by 10. The reason we're recommending going with the larger size well is if you need additional capacity, you now have it.
We don't have anywhere for additional capacity. We got,
You don't?
there's nowhere else to build.
Y'all
built out.
build it,
We're
y'all
built
constructed out,
We're
okay.
about 98%
Okay.
built out.
Well, we can go with the 16 by 10 and we can ask for what the upsize is just for comparison. If we want to look at that. We can reuse the existing motor. We'll evaluate it just to be sure. I understand that Weisinger has already purchased a new well pump, and that's because they tore the old pump down and found that it was all degraded. So they've got a new pump. It's already in their shop. We lower the pump. We will have to extend the power from the old location to the new. Everybody so far believes that that can be done with just by extending the wires, but we will verify that. We believe that we can connect the well to the existing header. It's an 8-inch pipe. And we'll check all that. That's where it was connected before, so it shouldn't be a problem. It's possible that we can plug the old well with mud for the new well. That will require that we use the same driller for both contracts. And I'm not making any decision on that right yet. The new well location is about 200 feet from the current location. We would also have to extend the chemical feed from the existing, how far? Again, it's 200 feet, so we shouldn't have a problem with just pushing the chlorine that far. If need be, we can always move, put a small chlorine building over there. So, we provided back in August an engineering proposal to do a new well. That shows the cost of the new well to be approximately $1.25 million. And the engineering fee to be, was $250,000, I believe. The proposal is still valid. We don't see a need to upsize that proposal. I have additional copies if you want to give all the directors, I'm sorry. The $1.25 million is, that's a standard cost of what a Jasper water well, if we go and do a clean site, again, right now we're looking at doing it by emergency. I don't want to give you a dollar value that's too low. We will have to do some other information on that. Once we have approval, what we will do is contact TCEQ on your behalf. We will send them a letter that states that the district is nearing impaired capacity because of loss of the well, and that we're declaring an emergency. We wish to start a new well. They will allow us to start drilling the well. We can't put it into use until we do all the paperwork. But they will allow us, instead of doing the paperwork and asking permission and then drilling the well, they're gonna allow us to drill the well and then do the paperwork to follow it up. We do enough wells that typically it's not an issue. It's not the way they'd like to do it, but if we do it that way, we have to proceed within 60 days. We have to be started on our well. Otherwise, they will say, you don't have an emergency, and start the process. They've already done that to us once this year. Let's see. Our intent is, first off, we've got to get TCEQ, we've got to do the TCEQ and get their approval, but simultaneously we have to get Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District's approval because you're drilling another well. And so they have to be notified, and you have to get their approval, it has to go to their board. Shouldn't be an issue, but we still have to do the paperwork. Meantime, what we'd like to do is prepare a scope of services for the new well, and actually we've already been working on it. What we intend to do is do a bid sheet so that whoever gives us a proposal for this is working on the same stuff that we're expecting they need to do. Drill the well, how deep to drill the well, what size of motor, the fact we already have a brand new pump. All those things should reduce the cost of the well. So that's our proposal. We're gonna give contractors approximately 1 week to get us a response, which is not normal. We don't have to do the bid process, which is time consuming and laborious. I would request the board's permission to authorize the president, general manager, I'm not sure how your board operates, and possibly, however, one other board member to review the proposals, and we can make an award so we can start the contractors as soon as possible.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. What is the TCEQ requirement per gallon per minute per household or per tap?
For a water well,
Yep,
0.6.
okay, so if we already have 1,500 on the other two wells,
No,
Why?
we don't, but go ahead. Okay.
That's what they're rated at.
That's if they're rated at 100% efficiency.
Okay, so what are they
Nothing is
at?
rated at 100%
Okay,
efficiency,
so what are they rated at?
even though it's
what are
brand
they-
spanking new.
What are they producing?
Yeah,
Percentage wise, roughly.
nothing works 100%.
No, but
But
what,
give me
but what are, I mean, are they,
All right.
is
How
it
many,
running at
what are
90,
they, how
80%?
many are
Yeah,
they servicing, a
well,
simple thing?
Right now, the last pump we pulled was between 65 and 70% efficient.
Okay, that low?
That, I was gonna say, that's not,
That's very low.
Well, the first well's what, before 1970?
Yes,
That's your 500 GPM. well.
Yeah, that's,
about, I can't give you an exact date, but,
Okay, so that's 975 gallons.
yeah, we're not considering everything though. One thing that you didn't consider in here is that if there is a fire, there is a so-called requirement per meter, am I not correct? Somewhere? You've had more
So are
dealing
you
with it
saying
than I have. I haven't
TCEQ's
had any.
requirement is less than the fire
Yes,
requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
let me explain.
And
Okay.
when we go into that and apply that, we are now in arrears.
Okay.
Period.
Okay, so
We
it's a
can't
fire
meet the
requirement.
requirement for both.
I don't have the fire requirements because we don't design. the
Steve,
fire
you, I think, were the ones that brought up the fire requirement.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what it was?
I don't remember the exact factor. I believe that,
Anyway, the deal was that we couldn't put out a fire. We wouldn't have enough water to put out a fire at our current condition.
So, just to clarify, typical water well is built for water,
This is just-
potable water.
The only thing he's
However,
considered here
over-
was
over
potable
time,
water.
Basically, it made sense. You've got water mains running all over the place. Let's just hook fire hydrants to them. That's what happened. Well, what they came to find out over the, last 30 years or so is we have all these systems that are designed, but they don't have the capacity for fire flow. And so, there's a difference between the TCQ fire flow, potable water requirements, and your fire protection, which is done by the NFPA.
And
it's
that
significantly higher.
determines what fire code we fall under, and it determines the fire insurance for each home
That's
in the area.
exactly correct.
Yeah.
Because that's where you run into your
And
problems.
it depends on how much water we have, and I'm gonna say, well, I forget, I won't say.
I think your ground storage tank, your storage capacity in addition to your well, and your pumps that feed the hydromatic system, that's the main proponent in the fire protection, to have so much storage on hand to be able to fight it real fast.
We understand that.
And so,
But you never know how much storage you might have on hand when a fire occurs.
right, but I'm saying when they tabulate how much you have to have,
Yes.
it's your well,
I
your storage
understand that.
tank, your booster pump, and your hydro.
And we have roughly 350,000 barrels, gallons. Is that
So-
not correct?
Go ahead.
How many gallons of storage do we have?
Well, right now, we're down to only 570,000.
And that's because you're not using the
We can't-
48
Well, now, we
volt
could
tank.
utilize, in an emergency, we could utilize 3, 2, and 1.
No, I cannot pump the water out of 2 right now. It's been sitting in that tank way
I
too
didn't
long.
say pump water out of 2. I said we could use the storage out of number 2.
I was gonna say,
No,
for a
we
fire, you
cannot.
couldn't.
Why
You
not?
couldn't, why not?
Because it's gonna go into the domestic line, that water is
It's not-
not,
it's not
not
potable.
compatible
Not
for
potable.
drinking.
So what are we gonna do with it once, you have to just drain it?
Yeah, I'm already,
Are you draining it now?
no,
I would hope.
right now I'm storing it because I don't want to drain the tank. Now you have other issues with rust and stuff building up. So I'm storing the water in there, but I can't use that water. It's already been in there too long, the TD, they call it.
What he's saying is he can't use it without.
I can't put it in the
Right.
system,
He
right?
can treat it and then use it.
Only when we're ready to start the well back up again, then I'll drain the tank completely, flush it, bring it up, so I know what I mean, to take bacteria tests before I put that plant back on.
But there's no way a fire department could go over, hook up their tanker.
They did it before. They did 3 and 2 before, for 10 years.
Yeah.
So they could hook up their tanker,
Yeah,
fill
they
it
can
up,
hook it
go
up.
to the
It
fire.
was done before.
Right.
There's no reason why it couldn't be done today.
You can't hook the fire truck to the tank. There's no connection.
Well,
to that.
I know
We're
there's no,
just
I'm
talking
talking,
storage.
get it out of there, put it in the tanker, so they could go
We're just
to a
talking
fire.
emergency storage now. But all I'm,
You have a huge fire, 4
Right.
houses catch on fire.
Right,
You can go for water reserve, load up the tanker truck, go back to the fire
Well-
location, is what I'm
if you
asking.
had it,
you can't do that.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, you can't do that. Not in that, if you're talking about utilizing that tank, you can't use
Right.
it, because all the tank pipes are pumps, direct to the pumps. There's no,
There's no
no exit to the
outdoor
water.
exit, okay.
There's not a
That's-
spigot on the
Yeah.
That's,
tank.
well,
No.
I'm asking if there's an outlet
no,
somewhere.
the suction goes straight to the pumps, that's it.
Okay,
Then they discharge into the system.
okay.
Now, what did you do for 10 years?
What do you mean what I do?
You
Nothing
produced
changed.
number 3 into number 2 and treated it.
Well, we pumped it from number 3
That's
all the
right.
way to number 2, and then,
And then treated it.
no, we injected it into the tank and then treated it.
All right.
So,
Why couldn't that be?
I don't understand, where are you gonna get, the pipe goes straight
Well,
into
we're
the tank.
talking about storage capacity. That's all I'm trying to get to.
You can't use tank number 2, or you put it into the equation because it's not potable water anymore. And the only way to get the water out of the tank is drain it or pump it through the system. That's it. So you take that out of the equation, you can't use that, it's not safe.
And how were we able to do it from 95 to 2008?
You were pumping direct from plant 3 through a sealed pipeline all the way to the tank
All right,
and
we
dumping
still
it
got
into the
that.
sealed
We
tank.
still got that pipeline, correct?
That is correct. It's
All
still
right.
there.
What would prevent us from doing it again?
Into 2, I don't have any control, I don't have any way to control plant number 3 anymore. When that plant became an isolated plant or a
How did
standalone
you
plant,
control it before?
it used to have electrical controls and stuff that went
All right.
all the way to there.
Well, you could control it.
Well, the controls aren't there anymore. Those were all taken out when the plant was built.
You don't want to. I understand you don't want to.
It's not that I don't want to.
But it happened before, it could happen again.
Well, let me put it this way.
Why did we take the controls out?
They were no longer necessary. It's a
That-
standalone
Apparently
plant.
they're necessary right
No, he
now.
put the tank in
No.
and therefore he did away with what was controlling what was going to number 2. All I'm
Okay.
saying is that you could return everything back if you had to have just additional storage. I'm gonna get off of that because that's a moot point, really.
Yeah, if we can't get it out, okay.
Yeah.
So if, I'm just gonna throw this out there, why couldn't we build a 500 gallon per minute capacity instead of 1,000? Because even at 500 gallons, at TCEQ is 0.06 gallons per minute, at 65% capacity,
You're
it puts-
cheating.
it puts us
You're
at
cheating
1,300.
everybody.
You're not
I
letting
mean,
I mean, you've
It's
got
a
2,000,
it's at double the requirement by TCEQ.
it's not double.
It is. If you will let me finish, I will tell you.
You don't have the fire
Okay.
stuff down.
Okay.
You do not know what the fire is.
That, you're exactly right, I don't, and nobody can tell me what
And
the
that's
fire
right.
is.
So why bring up something different?
Well, because
Because
We
the
know
only
it was
requirement I have
satisfied.
is TCEQ.
We know it was satisfied with 1,000.
Okay, so just because it's always worked in the past, just keep going with the standard.
That's
I'm
it.
just asking a question.
Fine.
Obviously, I'm not allowed to ask a question.
You can ask any question you want.
Okay,
just
well, I
make
was
it-
asking him a
Make it
question.
legitimate.
I was asking him a
Ask him.
question.
Ask him.
Well, it seems legitimate that she should be able to ask a question.
Ask him.
I was in the middle of asking it. Mr. Sullivan, if if we had a 5,000 gallon per minute well, at 500, sorry.
Wow, boy,
500 gallon per minute well, plus the other 500, plus the other 1,000, that's 2,000 gallons per minute. TCEQ's requirement is 0.06 gallons per minute. We have, let's say, for numbers reasons, 1,000 connections. Okay? 1,000 connections is 600 gallons per minute.
Okay.
Okay, 65% of 2,000 gallons is 1,300. Why do we need more than double TCEQ's requirement?
Because when you hit 85% of your capacity, you're required to start a new water well.
Okay, so,
That's in the rules and regs.
okay,
That's the
so
requirement.
85% of my capacity of 2,000 gallons per minute.
1,700.
It just starts kicking in.
We don't have 1,700 connections. We only have 964.
If it helps, help you answer your question, the requirements for the fire department when they have.
Okay, forget the fire department. I don't want, nobody can tell me what the fire department requirements are.
I can-
So why do we keep bringing up the fire department when nobody can tell me what they are?
I was just about to tell you.
Okay.
His requirements are 1,250 gallons a minute for
Okay,
his pumper to suck out of that hydrant.
okay,
That's what he told me.
okay, well, I just showed you it calculated at 1,300 at a 500 gallon per minute tank or well. So why are we going to 1,000? Because on here it says for additional growth. We're not growing anywhere.
No, there's no.
Then what do we need 1,000 gallons per minute well for? Yes,
I'd like to offer my comment.
thank you.
Well one is the oldest well you have.
Okay,
I would not put any stock on that long-term
Okay.
option.
Right.
Because well two is a younger well than well one, and it's already deteriorated and failed. So
okay,
I kindly, humbly submit well one
Okay.
is probably at close to the end of its life.
okay, and well one is how
Is
many
one the
gallons?
500 or the
Yes, sir.
1,000?
It was the original well.
It's the 500.
Yes, sir.
So when one goes, we won't re-drill it. We'll just stick with 2 and 3.
If you drill a
I'm
large,
asking.
if hypothetically, if you were to drill a large enough capacity well now, if you lost that, it would carry you in, you know, if you drilled 1,000 or a 1,200 gallon a minute well, it would be beneficial to do that if you lost well one.
But my question is, we would not re-drill well one if we
If
lost
you
it.
drilled a large enough well now to supplement that,
Okay.
moving forward, it would cut that expense out in the future.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
The
know.
only reason that I'm looking at well 1-2 is, as he said, because of the age, and it's a smaller well. It only has a 70,000 gallon tank. You
Okay,
can pump that baby out so
Right.
fast and not find it. You're right, we have the 2 big ones. Why have you drilled a little?
right,
I would abandon it and
Right.
go to the 2 big ones.
okay. You answered my question. Thank you.
Now, let me clarify something that
Okay.
you said. I'm not, the original previous well pump, or well, was 1,000 GPM well. The new one would be 1,000 GPM. And yes, I did make the statement in here because it was discussed. Again, I'm not the district engineer, so I'm catching up on a lot of different things. I was just recommending replacing the well, the 1,000 GPM well with 1,000 GPM, because that's what you had.
Okay.
To meet TCEQ. If you downsize your well, you're gonna have to get TCEQ approval to do that.
Well, there's also the problem, is that we're gonna be drilling it in a slightly different place, slightly. And who knows whether we'll be able to get 1,000 gallons per minute.
You're absolutely right.
There is no guarantee.
So what we're gonna be drilling, there's the,
We're gonna
So
get
what
as
you're
much
saying-
as we can.
but the hope is 1,000 gallons per minute.
That's right. The design will be for 1,000. That's what we had, or thought we had. That's what we got on number 3. And there's no reason to expect that we shouldn't expect it, but you never know. You can't see 700, 800, 1,000 feet down in the ground.
Right.
Well,
So you don't know for a fact that you're gonna get exactly the same thing that you got before.
well, Scott and I are drilling
Okay.
another one that's not gonna make what we expected to.
Anyway, does anybody have any more questions? Mr. Sullivan? Steve,
Scott.
would you come forward?
Yes, sir.
I think there's 3 seats here, you'll be able to take out. Steve's well was on, his workover rig has been on this well. He drilled the original well, I think. No,
No.
No.
Lane equipment.
Lane Bowler?
Did drill well 1 and 2,
Right.
and Alsay drilled well 3.
Ah, all right. But you've worked on it twice.
Yes, sir. Got
You
all
set the
records.
liner the first time, and you've been on it this second time.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you found, and what you think our best options are.
We pulled the pump out of the well and inspected the well with a camera survey and saw that the casings were deteriorated. And we went in there and wire brushed the well and jetted the field. And we did some cleaning on the well, and a mutual decision was made with the district here. Before we put the liner in the well, we did a log on the well to inspect the casing, the thickness of the casing, and the casing that showed it was deteriorated. And so we wanted to make sure before we spent the money in putting a temporary liner in the well, was the well gonna be able to have any life on it? And so we brought out our own temporary casing and put it inside the well, and we produced the well at a high yield, and the well started producing a lot of sand, and we pulled the casing back out, and there's a hole in the casing, in the upper casing where it was cemented. I feel comfortable saying in the shallowest formation called the Chico Formation, and it's got the lowest pH of all the formations in Montgomery County. Your Chico is the shallowest, your Evangeline is the middle, and the Jasper has two formations. You got the upper and the lower Jasper, and the lower Jasper is the third formation that historically people will produce wells out of. The lower Jasper is high in salinity, and so you have to be careful. It's a risk of making a well there. But anyway, the district's well, just for knowledge, is a blend of the Evangeline and the upper Jasper, not all of it, but just a part of it. And so you've been producing out of these two zones. And so with that being said, the well now has completely filled up with sand to the top of the liner in the well. It's just, it's gone. And so we took a look at, situation here and trying to figure out how could our company help y'all be able to achieve drilling a well in the time frame that you need and get it in June. And we do have a rig available, and what we would propose is if the district were to hire us to drill the well, we could meet your time frame and be completed by June. We would recommend to go with a 20x14 down into the lower Jasper. Don't go with Evangeline. There's not that much cost difference to go between the 18x12 and the 20x14. There's probably about somewhere around $70,000 cost difference to upsize the casing. If the water levels ever dropped in the area to the point where you'd need to put your pump inside the liner where your screens are, going with the 20x14 would allow you to have the ability to put a 1,000 gallon a minute or larger pump down inside there. An 18x12, you have to go with small diameter bowls and multiple stages, and it gets really complicated to try to get 1,000 gallons a minute out of a 12-inch liner. And so we think it would be money well spent, knowing the age of well one, to consider going with the 20x14 to be able to have a well that would, in my opinion, I think we could drill a well and complete a well that could not only produce 1,000 gallons a minute out of a 20x14, I think that well could probably produce around 1,300 to 1,500 gallons a minute. You could start off at 1,000 gallons a minute, and down the road the district could plan to upsize the electrical, put a larger motor in, and lower your pump in the well to get the ability to pump more water out of that well if the district chose to do that. And it's always good, in my opinion, if you, on water wells, I'm not trying to sell anything, but you don't want to restrict yourself to the point that if you needed to do something in the future, it's a big cost burden to overcome that. And if you can design something for a little bit more, $70,000 on the difference between, when you get in over $1 million on a water well, I know it's a lot of money, but it allows you to have a lot longer life for the district. Y'all would be planning for the next 50 years for your district to be able to do that. And that's I just think would be the prudent thing to do. The other thing is, most of the districts in the city of Conroe and everybody around y'all that has drilled 1,000 gallon a minute or larger wells, they've gone to the 20x14 and they've gone to the half-inch wall casing. These older wells were drilled with 3/8 wall casing. Going with the half-inch wall casing, it allows more corrosion allowance, which extends the life of the well. And so those are some things that are commonly practiced in the industry, and best practices within anybody doing engineering would typically today go with the half-inch wall casing. And if you go with the half-inch wall casing, if you go with an 18 by 12, you're gonna have an 11-inch ID instead of, say, 12, like a 12 and a, or 11 and a half ID. And so if you go to a 14 half-inch well, it gives you a 13-inch ID. It just allows you to, like I said, not to repeat myself, but to be able to lower your pump and do some really good things in your well. If you have to reline your well down the road like you did on well 2, you can go with a 10-inch liner inside your 14-inch casing, where an 8-inch well, you'd have to go with an 8-inch. And with a 10-inch liner, you could stop your liner about 30 to 40 feet above your top screen and still be able to lower your feet and pump in that 100 feet. You'd have about 70 to 80 feet to work with in that 14-inch casing.
So what you're saying is that a 20 by 14 versus an 18 by 12 provides you that much more flexibility
Yes, sir.
and capacity. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely gonna give you more
Do
capacity.
you think $70,000 is a fair price to go between the two?
Sounds like about right, yeah, I mean, you're buying the steel.
I'm just
The steel's
asking.
the big- No, the steel's your biggest cost there. You have some some drilling, extra drilling costs, but the steel is the biggest cost you got putting down in the hole there. But
Yeah.
again, from
Uh,
a long-term standpoint,
Further in our conversations that we had prior, which was at the meeting out there at his place, and then later on,
Friday.
you offered also to provide the plugging
At no expense.
and the, what else was it?
The engineering.
And the walkthrough to get the permits and all.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
To go to Lone Star and
Yeah,
and I want to make sure this is open and transparent here. I'm not offering that to compete against.
I know you're not,
engineering.
I'm aware of that, but that's part of the number that you quoted, which is, I don't know how good it is, but you'd have to put it in paper for us to go.
I actually I have a single copy. I was running late getting to the district, Richard, if you wanted to make a copy of that. But we had, I've got a PE on staff. And there's a lot of projects that we have to do that require us to have a PE. And when I heard the story about y'all's financial situation, about everything y'all are having to deal with, and wanted to know what I could do to help, you know, you explained to me on Friday all the different things that the district is gonna be dealing with here moving forward.
Yeah,
And so, like I said, it's not something, I don't wanna make a practice of this. We did a job recently, the city of Conroe came to us, they lost well 4 right next to Feeder Supply on Old Main Street. And it went down, and they had to have that well drilled extremely fast. And they wanted to know, was there anything that we could do? And we told them, well, we have a PE on staff. And, you know, again, we're not wanting to be in the engineering business, but if it is an absolute dire straits emergency situation, we have the ability to get the letter written, to get the approval at Lone
and
Star.
I don't think Bly or any other engineering firm would find fault with that. I mean, so many companies have
And so-
engineers on staff, period.
They asked
But,
us at the city what we could do, and we were honest and said, well, we have a PE on staff, and
But all of that's included in this letter?
it is.
I have a
Whether
question.
it gets that out here.
We're talking about all these numbers, a 16 by 10, an 18 by 12, and a 20 by 14. What do those numbers mean? What is it,
That's the diameter of the pipe. The
14
16
inches?
No, the 16 is the upper pipe that cements down to where your sand is that you're gonna get your water out of. And any well you drill out here is gonna be what's called a gravel packed well, where you're gonna drill a bigger hole and you're gonna put gravel on the outside of your screen. Your upper pipe, let's start on the smallest one, would be a 16, and then you have a 10-inch. There's probably a picture
that's a
right there.
picture of the water
Yeah.
well right there.
This is hypothetically right here, this would be either the 16 or the 18 or the 20.
Okay.
This would be the 10, the 12, or the 14 that's gonna go out the bottom. And
I
then
know what it is.
the drill bit that goes out the bottom here It's on a piece like this, and the arms, when you turn the mud pump on, they flare out and they turn like this. So they drill a bigger hole underneath your casing here.
Called underringing.
Underreaming is kind of like a belled hole in foundations, if you understand, the old belled trucks that
Yeah.
used to do that.
Yeah.
So all we're talking about, currently what you have now is a 16 upper casing and a 10-inch. That was the trend that they did years ago for these type of wells.
So you're talking about making the outer a 20 and this one a
A
14?
That is the most common for a 1,000-gallon minute well. 18 by 12 is definitely common, but there's more people that are drilling, the public entities that are drilling the 20 by 14 because they want to have the ability to put their pump inside this piece of pipe. If the water table drops such, you're not restricted where you can't, if you got to where you had to put the pump in the liner and you couldn't do it, you're gonna have to redrill another well.
Where's the pump in this situation?
This pump right now is gonna be, I think Mike was talking earlier, Mike Sullivan was proposing around 550.
550 feet below surface.
Yes, or below surface, and your static water level, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere around close to 300 or 300.
Should be 300.
So it's under the static water level. It was at 500, what they're proposing to go in is with 550. And 550 would allow you to still use the same size pipe and shafting and everything in your existing motor. And you've got controls, you've got a new soft start that Richard was telling me that y'all put in recently. And so you want to try to get some value out of what you currently have and have the ability down the road that you could upsize later. You don't have to do that today.
What is your time frame?
Our time frame would be if the board gave approval, we could start the process to get the, what we had talked about on Friday potentially would be is the district could remove the trees where we're not having to do it.
We can't,
Y'all can't?
no.
No.
We can't do anything outside the boundary of that. I ran into a problem yesterday when I proposed it, and they will not help the mud do a damn thing.
So we need to pick a spot
Yes, sir.
that we don't have to remove the trees.
Who?
No, we are gonna have to, what he's talking about, if we're set up inside our boundary, we still have to remove those trees.
Oh, inside, we can do whatever we please,
Right, and
not outside.
now I do believe the groundwater district, in order to get a quick permit on a replacement well, you have to be within 50 feet of your existing well. That's their rules. If you get outside the bounds, then it's gotta go to the board. And we've drilled quite a few wells in Montgomery County and other areas. We re-drilled a well recently for their company a few years ago at the city of Willis in the Pin Oak subdivision, and we were 35 feet from the existing well. And we were able to achieve drilling the new well, and we actually kept that existing well in service until they drilled a deeper well. This well, they wanted to keep it, and so we were able to cement that off, but we had to turn the well off. It was a little different situation, but I'm saying our company's got a lot of experience in being able to drill a new well next to an existing well, whether it's good or bad. And so.
And you're saying that you have to keep it within 50 feet?
That's what Lone Star's rules are. You have to stay within 50 feet, and you can get, the general manager can issue the permit without having to go to the board.
They don't care about communication.
That's their rules.
Communications will not be an issue.
You don't think?
We've drilled wells since close to
Yeah.
35. No, because the reason communications is not an issue just by drilling close to each other is because when you put your casing in, one of the requirements that the engineer has to certify is that you have 3 inches of cement on the outside. The well driller
That's on the
has,
surface pipe.
that's all the way on the surface pipe.
Yeah.
Okay, that gets you through all those other layers of.
The rest of it is gravel pack.
Down below is the gravel pack,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's where the gravel pack captures the water coming out of the
So
sand lip.
you're saying that alleviates any kind of communication?
Correct.
Even though you may have it, that should take care of it.
Yes. Oh, I mean, you're obviously going through the upper layer.
That's exactly what my
And
point
so
is.
you have-
All I'm trying to,
What
what
you're
I'm
doing is
trying to
plugging.
say is, we have an unconsolidated sand that has turned loose on us, probably for whatever reason. And all I'm trying to do is avoid having that same thing happen if we drill one within 50 feet.
You should not have a problem with a properly constructed well.
Now, is the Lone Star Groundwater Board the only one you have to go to if it's more than 50 feet?
Yes.
No, they're the
When
only
you-
one.
Pardon? They're the only one?
In other words, if we go outside 50 feet, we still have to stay within their wheelhouse, but it has to go to the main board. It takes it out of the control of the general manager,
I
and she can do
understand, I
that.
understand.
It goes before the board, and then the board has to decide whether they will or won't allow you to go further, so.
Okay.
But in order to meet the time frame in June,
There's not a board meeting between, that we could go to, so it becomes a moot point,
it
what you're
becomes a
saying.
moot point. I think we could pick a spot with your general manager here to drill the well.
Okay.
And move on with it. The other thing that we talked about, Richard has a relationship with Green Utility that can do the piping, where they can just bill the district direct. You know, you don't declare an
There's
emergency.
no problem with the piping or
And he's
the
got relationships
electrical or
with
anything.
A&H Electric that could come out and hook up the electrical.
Yeah, there's
And
no
so
problem.
those are some small items that are not in our proposal.
That's right. But there's, and I don't think they were in yours either, were
Yes,
they?
they were,
Mike?
the electrical is.
They were?
No, when we drill a well and do a completion, it's 100% complete.
You have it in your proposal?
Yeah.
That's why I was
Again, that's
sitting
what-
here looking at them, trying to
They're
compare
gonna
them.
Yeah.
have engineering in the
It's hard to
proposal.
do.
Right,
Which we would offer that as well, but,
well, they
No
do
matter-
have engineering, but it's not in the 1.2.
Well,
right,
to do what little bit of work we think needs to be done, we're probably talking about less than $25,000, $30,000.
total. Yeah,
That's
for
what
both- for both
in
items.
addition to
Yeah.
what he's talking about. Because the pipeline that we've got is the one that comes from number 3, and it'll go right next to us if we
Right.
need to. If it's not close enough, then we don't wanna lay another line. And the electrical is already there, it's just a matter of some more wiring. So,
Why is electrical listed twice on? Electrical on the Blau engineering list, electrical is listed twice. One for electrical upgrades for $100,000, and then another, line 9, says new electrical services for $25,000.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I didn't prepare this specifically.
Okay.
One is, let me read them real quick. Controls for the new well, communication to the water plant, and, okay. So one is actually the water well. Again, this was prepared with assuming you're drilling a new well out in virgin territory, which is green space. In this case, that's what I said. This proposal is typical worst case common well cost. We know that some of these costs would be reduced. The 100,000 would definitely be less. That's based on conversations that we've had since this proposal was prepared, that we can reuse all the existing controls. And that's all brand new information that I didn't have, and that they didn't have when they prepared this. The electric services by the electric provider, that's common with most wells. That is your utility service provider.
So
If you
energy's gonna come
if you
out
have
of
to
that.
upsize your motor for any reason, then a lot of times their standards have all changed, just like everybody else, and you can't use the old transformers. So you have to buy new. So that's the reason we included in our proposal, until they can tell us.
let it be said that we will not utilize Weisinger's abilities except to get started. I think that's the only thing that we're gonna utilize you for. Anything beyond that point will go to Blau. Because they are the district engineer. They will have to certify that the well is done according to Hoyle. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So neither one of these are good proposals?
Well, I believe Weisinger's,
What I'm proposing is to get it approved at the TCQ with my engineer.
is a good proposal at 1.2 2, whatever,
The figure's right
I gave
there.
it to somebody.
1.22.
I think he, are you viewing that as a firm?
That's a firm price, though.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pay
The
1.2
Blau has
plus
some,
1.4?
No.
no. I think the Blau could probably be reduced to something like 1.3, 1.35, 1.32. But they have a lot of engineering fees that they charge for, which
Right.
is legitimate. But we will still have those charges to add to it at the end for certification of the well.
I don't want to contradict you, but I'm saying if you get approval at Lone Star and TCEQ, there is no other certification.
Well, there will be, if it's mandated,
That would be self-imposed by the district.
that's right.
And I'm not campaigning for anything at all.
And that's purely will be a judgment decision at that time.
Let me explain to y'all right quick where this concept came from, and I wanted to share it with y'all. The city of Conroe asked us, instead of them doing the engineering, could we handle this project and get it approved at Lone Star and TCEQ? They already knew we had a PE on staff because they had worked with him in other things that we did that were not big engineering projects at all. They were just strictly geared around water wells only. And we told him we could do that, and we said, if you hire us to drill the well, he's already on our payroll, we won't charge for the engineering. The engineering that we provided to the city on that well, we got the permit at Lone Star, and we got the TCEQ approval on the emergency basis. We wrote the letter to the TCEQ. We submitted all the as-belts when we got done and sent the package to the state, and the state of Texas gave them approval, and they're pumping that well right now. And they didn't have to do anything else at all when
So
we got through.
both of these proposals are for turnkey projects.
That's what we're
That's what
proposing.
you're proposing, Mr. Sullivan, turnkey
His
projects,
is
right?
not.
Yes.
The
His is
Blau
not
is
a
not a
turnkey.
turnkey project. It's open-ended. Blau's is not.
Lyle's is not a turnkey
No.
for this
That's the
well.
turnkey. Blau's is an estimate.
Okay,
yeah, if you want to put it that way.
okay.
And believe me, and it's only an estimate basically because he doesn't have privy to what the Weissingers or the Lane Bowlers or anybody else is gonna charge to come in and move and drill a well, number one. Number two is that he doesn't know how much engineering work is gonna have to be done, so he put in
Okay.
a great deal.
Can I make a proposal that we have a committee set up of 2 people, any 2 people, to compare these when, are you gonna submit a new proposal? Or
Well,
are you
they
going to-
can't submit
No.
a turnkey.
No.
Okay,
No,
Blau will not submit a
we
turnkey.
gave you,
They are not a contractor.
We're required
other
to give
than
you
an
a
engineering
proposal
firm.
for services.
So you would
select us
have to
based
go,
on
it would have to be, if you wanted to do a turnkey, you would have to go out on a bid process with all the parameters, and that takes 2 months?
Yeah, minimum, yeah.
Why does it take 2 months?
Because
Somebody
they
has
have
to
to
write.
get
to
to
advertise.
You
the
have to
30
advertise,
days.
it's a whole bunch of requirements.
They have to
And
notice it, they have to
your
do
bid
this, that, and the
package.
other.
And then you have to physically
Whereas on
publicize it.
an emergency
For a
basis,
week.
we can take what we know. If not, then you wait.
On an emergency basis, the state has a process. It doesn't matter how you go about it, what engineer does it, but they have a process in place for a situation just like y'all have here. Conroe had one, other people have them, and it's a variance to the standard process. You submit a letter, you state your case to them, they review it, and they give you notice back. And we've written enough letters in our life, and we've seen enough other people written letters that you know how to draft the letter. You send it to TCQ within 48 hours, we'd have approval, and you would start moving forward with drilling the well. It eliminates all the normal requirements, and in order to hit the target in June, the clock is ticking. Y'all don't have a whole lot of time to get this. I mean, we're talking about building Rome in a short time to move in and drill a big well and get it tied into the system And once we get it tied into the system, you have to submit a package to the state, and that package has got to get reviewed by them on the tail end to tell you, okay, you can turn it on. And there's an art to that. The engineering companies have to, or whoever's handling it, the PE, they really gotta be on their toes to get that approval on the end of it so you can get that well put online.
Right.
Is the new well gonna be within the fence area of the old well?
Just outside of it, but within the
Not within the
perimeters.
fence, it'd be within the berm
Right.
area.
Okay.
The berm
We
is actually the
we own
property.
out to the berm,
Okay.
So we'll just.
but
do
it's gotta
fence.
be within
So we'll
50 feet of
fence it
the,
in.
so it'll be within the fence.
We'll extend the fence out to cover it.
Right.
The fence, I don't think extends, I think it extends 50 feet out, doesn't it? In certain direction.
That would be the third thing. You've got a fence guy, if y'all choose our proposal, that would have to extend your fence around.
Yeah, I'd already take care of that.
All right, are there any other questions of either party? Then, I would submit a resolution to approve the drilling of well number 2 as per the letter provided by Wysinger and Associates, or Wysinger Water Well Service. And I want to bring one other thing to front on Mike's letter, on Mike's notes. He's talking about a new pump was ordered. We're gonna get credit for that new pump. If we decide to use a different pump, he's gonna give us credit. We're not having to buy that pump at this time.
You have an invoice
Number
for the
two.
pump you have, right?
The
No,
12-inch
no,
we have an
casing
invoice
that
to
they
do.
No.
bought to line the well in anticipation of us completing this job as originally forecast. He's putting it in stock and not charging us for that.
That was about
Now, I know
$70-something
there- I
thousand
didn't-
worth of
I failed
materials.
to say that, but anyway, the resolution has been made. Is there a second?
You need to declare an emergency too.
Pardon?
In that resolution, you need to declare it as an emergency
Yeah,
so the
well,
letter can get written at the
as
state.
per our agenda, it's emergency
There you go.
well number 2. Is there a second?
I second it.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All, I understand, all 5?
Yes.
Make it unanimous. Since there's the only item in front of the board, we shall be adjourned.